What's up, you guys? This is All Danny Day 1 on the PS4, and I'm going to be giving you both my thoughts and review for Insomniac Spider-Man. So this is my first ever review on any game, and I've always wanted to do reviews for a while, but I just never got around to it and was never really comfortable with sharing my opinions about them until now. So I'm going to be categorizing each section of what I'll be reviewing, such as visuals and movement, combat mechanics, progression, open world interactions, storyline and character connections, and then the last one is music and soundtrack. I will also not be doing a scoring or doing any type of scoring. I think people have their own opinion on what the score should be, so I'll just leave it at that. I'll also make this as a non-biased as possible and speak from a gamer's perspective and not really from a Spider-Man fan's perspective. First up, we've got visuals and movement. So for the visuals, in this game, it is hands down one of the best I've seen aside from the newer games like God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Detroit Become Human. But you know, I suppose when it comes to PlayStation exclusive games, you really shouldn't expect anything less graphic wise. But you know, that's just me. But now, for the next part is the lighting when it comes to the graphics. So the lighting to me is just phenomenal. For example, the sun reflecting off the water and through the clouds looks amazing. Water textures are so smooth, and the city itself looks really, really real and beautiful. Now, the movement in this game, the movement is crazy compared to any other Spider-Man game I've ever played. This one has the best realistic web slinging that I could really ask for a Spider-Man game, because when you web sling, you're not just slinging in the sky hoping your web is connecting to something, but it actually connects. And not only does it connect, you feel like it's just fluid movement. Web slinging throughout the city is just super smooth and it's fun. I honestly can just spend hours just swinging around town and doing nothing else. But for me, you know, I'd have to give the visuals a solid 10 out of 10 as well as the movement. But, you know, I'm not keeping score, so that doesn't really matter. Up next, we've got combat mechanics. So, having good combat is a very important part of literally every game that has any sort of fighting. This game almost nails it. The combat itself is very smooth and very enjoyable to watch Spidey knock out his foes, swinging from wall to wall, just webbing them everywhere, it doesn't really matter. But there was just a small part of it that I was really missing, which is a lock-on system. I think it would have been pretty nice to have a lock-on system that you can turn on or off, because sometimes I'd be attacking one enemy and I'll go for a solid combo, almost finish them, and then all of a sudden I'm attacking a different enemy. Now, I understand that the way the lock-on works on here is just wherever Spider-Man's pretty much facing, or whoever's the closest enemy, or you know, whoever's targeted. But yeah, I kind of just wish that there was some type of lock-on system that you could have just applied with like maybe an L3 or something. But you know, that's just something really small that doesn't necessarily have to be changed to make the game fun. Another thing that I'd say was a slight missed opportunity with the combat is having different combat interactions with the environment and different finishers. For the combat interactions with the environment is really fun. Being able to jump to a wall and kick your enemy, webbing your enemies to a wall, or grab an object and swing it around and throw it at your enemy is always fun. But I feel like they could have added a bit more interaction, such as kicking or pushing a car at your enemy. Like, let's say the enemy is right next to the car, and all you have to do is just charge up to it and push it, and it'll kind of knock them down. That would have been a pretty interesting little thing. Or using a light pole to hang your enemy, or just a bunch of different interactions. But you know, like I said, the interactions are great and isn't something I'd really worry about and having to change or anything, because the game is still fun. Now, the finishers, that's something that could use some work for me. because I've honestly only ever seen about 4 or 5 different finishers, maybe a little bit more, but it's mainly with the small guys. You'll see different type of finishers, but it's the bigger ones, the brutes or whatever you want to call them, the elites. They don't really have any different finishers, or with the bosses, they don't really have any different finishers either with them. The smaller guys have maybe like 3 or 4 different finishers. But all in all, the game combat system is great, it's smooth, it works, it's fun, and I would never really get tired of it. The dodging is great too, being able to dodge everything goes slow, and then just makes the fun, it's just fun.
He webbed me! Come on, guys! Let's move!
Now we're on progression. So the way progression in this game works is you don't need to be a certain level to do certain missions or objectives, which to me is great in comparison to a game like Assassin's Creed, where you have to be a certain level, otherwise enemies will do a massive amount of damage to you while you do almost nothing. With this game, it's all about the difficulty, because the enemies basically scale to you, they scale to your level. It doesn't really matter if you're a high level or low level. Now, it does depend on your difficulty, depending on how difficult your enemies will be. If you're on the hardest difficulty, your enemies are going to hit a lot harder and be a lot more aggressive. The game is pretty well balanced for your character, and boss fights are always mechanically fun and not really overpowered. All the bosses really have a good mechanic to them. They are a bit repetitive when they do their attacks, but none of the bosses are the same, which to me is really fun. So, you do have a set of skills, gadgets, and suits you can acquire throughout the story, and obtaining resources. It isn't hard to do, and it's fairly enjoyable doing these resource gatherings. Sure, you'll find yourself doing a lot of the same repetitive things like car chasing, stopping random encounters, collecting backpacks, etc. But that's where this game shines to me, is the fact that the repetition is enjoyable and it doesn't really feel like an awful grind. The next thing we're going to be talking about is open world interactions, such as random NPCs and missions. A really fun thing to do is to just sometimes walk on the streets of New York and see what the NPCs would say to you, sometimes to see how they would react. Some of them praise you, and some of them don't. Some of them call you a fake, some of them are like excited to see you. I really like the fact that the NPCs don't feel empty when you walk by them, because they have their own little banter with each other or with you. I don't, for me, I don't really want to play an open world game like Skyrim, where the NPCs feel empty and emotionless. Also, let's not forget about the fun little subway rides during the fast travel screens. Missions in the game is also very fun and pretty unique. Some missions will have you do sneaky missions, which pretty much reminded me of the old Splinter Cell games, and you also have puzzles. Now, I love puzzles in games because they really get you thinking and actually make you use your brain, rather than just mashing a few buttons. The thing with these puzzles is they're easy, and if you don't want to do them, you can just skip them. Now, I'm not complaining that the puzzles are easy, because they're really fun to do, and they're simple. What they could have done is they could have made it to where it's like a little mini game, kind of like how we have all our little challenges or events, where there's a bomb puzzle and you have to solve that bomb puzzle within a certain time frame, and the faster you complete it, the more points you get or something. I think then this would have made it a bit more stressful for some players who want a challenge, because they know they're racing time. But I don't know. I just think they could have pushed the puzzles a little bit further. But aside from that, the open world interactions, the missions, everything in this game is just really good. It's really fun. Even if it's repetitive, I just find it super fun.
Looks like some impedance in this neurosensor circuit.
Up next is your storyline and characters, and don't worry, There's no real heavy spoilers in this part. It's a very, 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 very tiny spoiler, but it's nothing that's gonna affect the whole entire game. The story itself was a great ride. I enjoyed every part of it, as well as being shocked on some parts. My main thing about the story, or about any story-driven game, is I need to feel some type of connection with the characters, either the character that I play or the sub-characters. And honestly, I didn't feel a connection with playing Spider-Man, but that's because I know Spider-Man. Like, I know the story of Spider-Man, I've read the comics, watched the TV series, I played games of Spider-Man, so I think it's a little different when you've played the character before, and it's different times. But for me, just in this game, I didn't really feel any sort of connection with this character, let alone any other characters. Games like Detroit Become Human, Horizon Zero Dawn, or The Last of Us, I felt some type of connection with my main character as well as the sub-characters. I'm not exactly sure what it was that I was missing for me with Spider-Man, but I'm going to guess it's because in this game, you don't really grow with the character. They're pretty much just at a constant from the start to the end. Sure, you'll see relationships break apart or come together, but you don't really see these characters grow. The only character I really felt a connection with was both Jeff and Miles. Jeff because he really resembled a true hero, and Miles because you see him in pain and watch him get stronger emotionally and just learning. And it's pretty cool seeing him kind of work with Spider-Man in a way as a fan. Aside from that, the voice actors and actresses I think were great for their roles. They really fit them and played them well. And overall, I think the characters were great. It's just for me, I didn't feel the connection with them. I wish I did, but it doesn't mean that the game is bad, the characters are bad, or anything. It's just for me, I did not feel the connection.
Breathe deep, relax. Hip square to your opponent. Let them make the first move. Now use your feet. When they go off balance, look for an opening. Boom. Like that? Yeah, that's it. Okay. Only this time? Just let me
Osborn resigned in disgrace.
So the last thing we're going to be talking about is the music and soundtrack. So let's go ahead and start off with the music. So music in games are important because it really intensifies the emotions that you're having in that situation. For example, in a horror game, you'll hear horror-like music playing in the background when something is about to happen. Like, for example, in Spider-Man, the combat music fits great during combat, and free roaming music fits great for free roaming. And I really enjoy when I'm swinging around the city, I hear this like superhero-esque type of music when you're just swinging around. For example, right now, sometimes the music will play some sort of happy-ish during a time where it shouldn't really be a happy song or happy music. But that's not something that would really make or break the game, and I don't really think it matters too much because overall the soundtrack, the music, the scores are great. I love the music a lot. For example, right now the music intensified a little bit more while you just get into combat. But now we're gonna just go ahead and go to the intro soundtrack. The soundtrack for this game, or I suppose the musical score, to me is fantastic. It really reminds me a bit of a mix of Fallout 4's intro music and some of Horizon Zero Dawn's soundtrack, as well as Dragon Age Origins. But I think it's just because of the fact that you have the similar, I guess, music or musicals. I don't know exactly what it would be called, orchestra. But this is the type of music I definitely can see for a Spider-Man game, or really any superhero game, like Batman. I mean, I guess for Batman games, it would be a little bit more dark. But I'm just a huge sucker for good musical scores, and this here to me was perfect. And that is it for my thoughts and review for this Spider-Man game. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I'm hoping to do more review videos in the future regardless of this one doing well or not. If you guys have any sort of feedback, it would be much appreciated. Just, you know, so I can make better reviews or whatever it is that you want me to do. Thanks for watching. This is All Danny Day 1 on the PS4. Have a good day, good night, and peace.